Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is Sean Freemason, OG, coming at you. Um, I want to talk about this Travis Scott thing that just happened recently because it's been really on my heart all day, and I thought about writing something about it, but I just want to speak from the heart about it because I see a lot of people coming at Travis Scott and accusing him of being responsible for this. And I want to put my input on this because I think it's important. I think my perspective is important. I think my perspective is unique in the sense of my education in regards to, you know, my spiritual education in regards to the divine and demonic energy forces that exist in this world. All right. All right, where do I start here? Okay, Astroworld, this big concert. If you have not heard of it already, it took place in Houston, Texas. Texas, which has been a hotspot for spiritual activity this year. In case if you're not familiar with what's happening in Texas this year, then you're asleep. Okay, anyone who's awake knows that Texas is a hotspot for spiritual warfare this year. Okay, so the fact that this incident happened there is really big. And this rapper Travis Scott, who's also a producer, he's more of a producer than a rapper. He's kind of followed in the footsteps of Kanye. In fact, I would say it was Kanye who kind of helped Travis Scott on his trajectory. So, and that makes this whole thing even more auspicious, to be quite honest, because Kanye West put out his Donda album this year, which is his first album since coming to Christ after Jesus is King. And that was in and of itself a really interesting spectacle all of its own. But anyways, we're talking about Travis Scott here, who first worked with Kanye back in 2013 on his album Yeezus, which was also an album that had a lot of spiritual warfare on it. And on Yeezus, I think the demonic energy kind of won at the end a little bit. If you were taking score, I'm not sure who was taking score while listening to that album. Kanye fought the good fight, but I think the demonic energy won. But anyways, we're talking about Travis Scott. He was a producer on that album, and over the years, he's come out with 3 albums. One of them called Astroworld in 2018, which is the album that hooked me on Travis Scott. I listened to it a lot on my road trip when I was first traveling the United States with my cousin Dylan. My cousin Dylan, we traveled the United States, and this album came out during our travels. And I remember when it came out, and I wasn't a big Travis Scott fan at the time. I heard him on features sometimes, and I kind of liked him, but it was never like, yo, Travis Scott, he's what's up. He had pretty 2 successful albums before Astroworld, which I had never listened to. Rodeo in 2015 and his 2017 album, which had a lot of hits on it. I forget what it's called, but Birds in the Trap Say McKnight or something like that. I forget what the album was called, but it had a lot of hits on it. It had Coordinate on it. It had Goosebumps. It was a successful album, but I was locked up for a lot when these albums came out, and when Travis Scott's rise to power, I guess you could say, I was locked up for a lot of that. Although I do remember when Antidote came out for the first time. Antidote, I would say, was his big smash party mainstream single was Antidote. If you're interested in listening to that, you can go do that. And there's definitely a lot of demonic energy in that song, and it's dressed up with the the decadence of the beat, and just kind of the way he uses these kind of filters on his voice to make it sound seductive. The whole track in and of itself is very seductive, but kind of in a demonic way, because there's just nothing really good about in the lyrics of this song being put forth. It's just this kind of party lifestyle which he's depicting, which is very relevant. It's very interesting from an artistic perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, it's very scary. And Travis Scott has had this mosh pit type energy to a lot of his music for a long time at his shows, which I have never been to. No one I know has ever been to, but from what I've heard about, he puts on these mosh pits at his shows quite frequently, and people get hurt at them, and he kind of encourages this a little bit. This violent, turbulent energy to his music, which is controversial. And when Astroworld come out, I listened to this album because somebody I had met on my road trip had put me onto it, and she said she enjoyed the album, and it's all about what the chicks say nowadays, right? No, but seriously, this album, the concept was cool. It was like this old amusement park that got shut down when he was a kid, and to me, Astroworld was like, oh, this is this kid who found a way to rap, and he wanted to make his dream come alive through rap music, and he was gonna do whatever it takes to make that happen. And so it was this amusement park that was around when he was a kid. It got shut down, and he made this album based off of it. And it was a pretty dope album, and it honestly wasn't that dirty. Compared to a lot of rap music, it wasn't just the whole listening experience of Astroworld was really smooth. And I actually listened to it on repeat several times in the car, from the car ride home from Montana to Massachusetts in 2018 on my road trip, because it was super smooth sounding. And my cousin I was with was actually pretty Christian. He was pretty conservative, and this album was able to kind of slip by his radar, if you understand what that means. It didn't immediately trigger any of his kind of religiosity. So that's what kind of intrigued me about it a little bit too, and which made the album so much more enjoyable for me, was that it was an album which had songs on it which were kind of cleanish. So I felt like Travis was a part of that Kanye movement in terms of trying to maybe take hip hop in a more divine direction, which I think is what Kanye's trying to do with Jesus is King and Donda. He has a lot of street rappers on Donda, which he bleeps out their swears, and he's able to kind of he's able to bring the dialogue about Jesus again back into the rap conversation, which has really never been present. There has never been a moment in rap where Jesus was at the center of the conversation. Maybe with the exception of Jesus Walks, the song by Kanye West from his first album, and maybe when Church Clothes first dropped, a mixtape by Christian rapper Lecrae, which charted really freaking well on Dat Piff. Dat Piff was a notorious mixtape website for a good period of time. I would say from maybe 2009 or 2010 to maybe 2014, 2015. When the internet first became super mainstream and when streaming services became corporate. So that time period, that's when Dat Piff got big, and Lecrae had a mixtape on there called Church Clothes, and he had a lot of. It was a really interesting project because he's a faith-based rapper, Let me slow it down for a minute. And yeah, he dropped a mixtape on a very secular website. I mean, in fact, nobody on Dat Piff, I think, was thinking, oh, this rapper practices that faith. That wasn't really a thing at the time. So it was cool when Lecrae did that. He was able to actually chart his album on the Dat Piff charts pretty well. A lot of people download this album. It's a free website, so anyone can go on Dat Piff to this day, and you can download tons of albums for free. But anyways, yeah, I was talking about faith-based rap and Jesus being at the center of the conversation, and Travis Scott being a rapper who was basically kind of signed and put on by Kanye West. He's obviously, he's done a lot on his own since then. Everyone's had a feature with Travis Scott. Travis Scott is just like, he's almost a household name if you consider hip hop sacred at all, which I think a lot of people do, especially my generation. I'm a millennial. Hip hop is considered sacred, like Jay-Z, Kanye West, Drake. All these guys are like, whether we want to admit it or not, they haven't impacted us dramatically. And the way we, behave on social media, the way we are in our relationships with, romantic relationships, to our beliefs, I have definitely been shaped by hip-hop. Which is why this whole Astroworld incident is really important, I think. This just happened, I believe, it was 2 days ago, I think. On November 5th, of all days. November 5th being the kind of the Me for Vendetta, remember the 5th. So it's kind of like a day that revolutionaries look out for every year, because we never know if something might happen on that day. It's November the 5th. There might be some guy out there that just does something, right? Anyway, so something demonic kind of happens on the November the 5th this year in regards to Travis Scott and his Astroworld concert event, which was, from all accounts, it was overcrowded. There was a huge roster of people on this, including people like Chief Keef, and, it's just like a lot of like secular rappers, but there was also guys like Tori Moi and Tame Impala, which were on the roster for this this concert. Kanye himself was actually not billed this year. He was not on the poster. I think Drake came out at one point. This was definitely a very secular concert. There was no artist at this show who could be called, oh, that's a Christian artist. Absolutely not. Even if Kanye was there, I'm not sure if Kanye is really regarded as a Christian artist yet. Just because he hasn't worked with any other Christian artists, and Donda had a lot of secular features on it. But anyways, that's all beside the point. Trying to draw it back to Travis Scott, this rapper, producer, who's put on this, he's able to get to a point in his career where he can put on his own show, his own concert, and it's actually a festival from what I understand, because I think Astroworld is like a couple days long. He's been doing it for a couple of years, since the album called Astroworld came out in 2018, and he's able to put on this festival called Astroworld. From all accounts, it was just overcrowded, and there was too many people there, and I guess the energy of the concert just apparently got too demonic, in the sense of, there was lots of drugs going around, there wasn't enough water, and from what happened, it's all documented. And there's actually footage of it, of people getting trampled at this concert, including a 10-year-old kid, and some young teenagers and other people. I think there were like 8 or 10 people that died at this concert, and according to what I've heard so far, wasn't there. This is all hearsay from the internet. But from what I hear, Travis Scott just kept performing. Which is, maybe he was just tripping off the moment. Maybe he was really high himself. But I definitely, you kind of get this vibe from Travis Scott that he's like some kind of like robot. He just seems kind of inhuman. I think there's an element of Travis Scott that seems very inhuman. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me that when something really tragic happened at a show of his, that he had an inhuman response, which was to keep going and to keep performing. He's used to mosh pits at his shows. Mosh pits are nothing new to Travis Scott. Violence is nothing new to Travis Scott. There have been shows before where people have been carried out because they could not handle the energy at his concerts. But that's never fazed him, and that's never fazed his fans. That's never fazed the media before today for some reason, right? And, this is one of the first big major concerts after the COVID lockdowns, where we've all been locked down for some of us for a year almost. I was in Los Angeles for most of it. I know what it felt like to be locked down, to not have interactions with other people, let alone large crowds. So you have this crowd of 50,000 plus people. And Travis Scott is actually on record on Twitter and Instagram saying that he wants to let more people into this already overcrowded concert. And, it sounded cool, right? Yo, I'm going to let more people in my concert because everybody wants to be here because I'm so hot. And that sounds reasonable until something like this happens, where people start dying at your concert. And, he's getting all this media backlash from it. I've seen some Christian YouTubers and Christian friends who have reached out to me and said, yo, this was demonic. And I've even had, there's footage of people who were at the show, and then just people in general who are saying that this is wrong, or even, secular people, if you really want to label them like that. People who do not belong to the religious sphere of things, and they're saying, yo, this was wrong and demonic, and Travis Scott needs to own up to his response, his role in all this. And damn, yeah, it's had me reeling all day, man. And it almost feels like a terrorist attack happened. This is the way I feel usually when Kobe Bryant died. When the Paris terrorist attacks happened from ISIS, or even the way I felt when Trump got elected, kind of this dark, foreboding feeling in my heart, oof, this is big, and there's a lot of not good stuff revolving around this event. And it's just spooky feeling. And then, I even went online later today to listen to this song, The Plan, or what was it called? Escape Plan. No, last year, Travis Scott came up with a song called The Plan during the COVID pandemic, okay? And now he comes up with an Escape Plan this year. There's a total ton of symbology here and spiritual warfare up the ass about on this whole subject, and it's just absolutely nuts how people are noticing it, but I'm not sure if they're really grasping the full effect of it. I haven't seen all the YouTubers that I thought respond to it, so I wanted to put my response out there. I think this is imperative more than ever that we need to get behind secular artists like Kanye who are trying to bring it back to the divine. We need to really reconsider what we regard as entertainment, what types of entertainment we're consuming, and how that media is programming us to be divine or demonic. And I want to really ask everyone that follows me and everyone that knows me and every single person in this world, do you know what divine is? And do you know what demonic is? And what kind of future do you want to create for yourself and for your children? For future generations of humans who are born on this planet? Because I could... I don't want nobody out there to get the wrong idea. I get down to... I fucking love Travis Scott, man. And to see this happen at one of his shows really speaks to me. And to everyone out there who's sleeping on Kanye because of what? You know, his whole conversion to Christianity and his support of Donald Trump. I want you to really reconsider the whole narrative that you have about everything right now. About politics, about religion, about the culture. Because this is like a wake-up call. We gotta stop letting these types of things happen and without processing them appropriately and responding to them appropriately. And as someone who formerly lived in Los Angeles and had the opportunity to become a content creator, I'm still a content creator, but I pulled myself out of the city because I just disagreed with what I was seeing there, and I had to leave. And you know, and things like this are happening, you know, and the whole COVID crisis is still happening. And I think it's really important that we all take a step back and evaluate what everything means. You know, Travis Scott, I think there's still room for salvation for him, and for him to make good music that's, you know, positive to the culture. But this was definitely, hopefully, a sign to him. You know, he's been on the Kanye album this year, Donda. He's been on the Drake album this year, Certified Lover Boy. And, you know, in the hip-hop world, for those of you who do not know, there's been this big conflict in terms of, you know, the Kanye and the Drake album kind of being the two mega titans in the hip-hop world. They're two hip-hop titans. No doubt about it. As far as 2021 goes, they are the two biggest titans in the hip-hop music genre to release anything this year. You know, to be sure, there have been other hot hip-hop albums this year, but what I'm saying is that these two albums in particular have been by two very prolific artists. And, you know, there's kind of been this friction between them in terms of which one is hotter, you know, which one is realer. There's controversies in regards to both of them, Kanye and Drake. Travis Scott is featured on both of their albums, and in some ways, he's just as big as both of them. One of those artists that just kind of experienced exponential growth and influence. And you know, I think art plays a big part in the direction that American culture is going to take. We got to be very careful of letting religion influence us too much, because there is this kind of separation of church and state in America, which kind of preserves what American democracy stands for. But yeah, this is really big, guys. So I would like to pray for Travis Scott if I can. I'm not even sure if I'm qualified for that. And for anyone who's not following hip-hop right now, music, culture, all these things are really important to what direction we take as a species right now. So shout out to everyone out there. Speak up to your friends on social media and get the message out to there. Divine order needs to be restored in this world.